There came a moment in time when everything began to change for that group of slaves that Moses led out of Egypt. They had survived the hard times, and now they were entering the promised land. For the Lord is bringing you into a good land, so we read in the book of Deuteronomy, a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs gushing out into the valleys and hills, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce and you will lack nothing, a land where the rocks are iron and you can dig copper out of the hills. Now that they had arrived, however, the danger before them was unlike anything they had faced in the past. And this time, the Lord could not save them unless they remembered. Their greatest danger was that they might soon forget who they had once been and how the Lord their God was the one who had rescued them. And so he told them, "When you have eaten and are satisfied, praise the Lord your God for the good land he has given you. Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God." The constant theme of the Bible is how easily we forget what God has done for us. It begins with creation and how all too often we even forget that we were created by God. It is filled with stories of how God acted to save us, but then we forget what God has done for us. It is filled with stories of how God blessed them over and over again, and yet how few have felt any need to return and say thanks to God. This tendency of ours to forget all that God has done for us lies at the heart of many of our problems. Having done so, we then look upon life as ours and think that we can do whatever we want, instead of seeing that life as a gift from God, that it is best lived by walking in God's ways. And if we lack for nothing, then we give credit where credit is due and say, we've earned that. And we falsely believe that God had nothing to do with our prosperity. The writer of Deuteronomy spoke specifically about this problem, saying that if we forget how God was there to help us in the past, then you may say to yourself, "My power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me." But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant. Yeah, that about sums up all the problems in our society today. We are wealthy, but we do not see God's hand in that, and we feel no need to thank God for our prosperity or to become good stewards of God's gifts to us. Prosperity is a terrible curse. If we were poor, then we would be more beholding and grateful to God for the little that we do have. And strangely enough, we might also be more willing to share it with those in need. Thomas Brooks, a Puritan pastor, once said, "If adversity hath killed his thousands, prosperity hath killed his 10,000s. Therefore, adversity is to be preferred. The one deceives, the other instructs. The one miserably happy, and the other happily miserable." This was the danger that lay ahead for Israel, and the danger that faces us in such a society as our own. But the danger can be avoided. All we need to do is remember who we are and whose we are. All we need to do is pause and give thanks to God for all that is ours. That is a good step in the process. This week, we will celebrate Thanksgiving Day as a national holiday in these United States. It is mostly about the food now, I guess, but originally it celebrated the birth of a nation. George Washington issued the first Thanksgiving proclamation in 1789 by calling upon all Americans to express their gratitude to God for the happy conclusion to their war for independence and for the successful ratification of the U.S. Constitution. They remembered and they celebrated God's providence in bringing to them this victory. Since then, of course, Thanksgiving has also come to celebrate the harvest too. Looking backwards to the generosity of this land's first settlers, the Native Americans who fed the Pilgrims. Personally, however, I think that the best way to celebrate Thanksgiving Day is not to make it about history at all, but rather to gather with your family if you can, and to remember the good times and bad. Remember the year just passed, and remember years long ago as well. Eat, drink, and be merry. And then watch some favorite holiday movie together, maybe. But also celebrate this day by remembering how the Lord has been there for you in the past, and how the Lord has blessed you along the way. And consider then, as you go into the holiday season, how you may yet become a better steward of all that God has given you. Even if you are having trouble making ends meet right now, you can still do all these things, and you can still give thanks to God. Giving thanks to God is not just about the good times. In the bad times, giving thanks to God can remind us that the same God who has sustained us throughout all the years is also the God who is with us still. Note how it says in Deuteronomy, "For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land." Future tense. Their joy today came from looking forward toward the future that was going to come from their past, provided they did not forget the Lord their God. The writer of the book of Deuteronomy simply reminded them how their coming prosperity might endanger the progress they had made as God's people. Having gained the promised land now, they might soon forget how God had helped them along the way. It remains true that in every circumstance we do well to pause and consider and thank God for the 1,000 blessings we have already forgotten. We prosper in this life by the grace of God, or maybe we struggle just to get by, and still the grace of God blesses us in every circumstance. Remembering that and giving thanks to God can help bring life into better focus for us now and allow us to go on in hope. I call to mind Martin Rinkert, who became a deacon in Eilenburg, Germany during the 30 Years' War, which lasted from 1618 to 1648. During that time, the small walled city filled up with thousands of war refugees. And while all the other clergymen either died or fled the town, Martin used all of his resources trying to help the poor. And then, when a plague struck the town in 1637, he also spent all of his time burying the dead, as many as 50 a day, and then buried his wife as well. By the time peace finally came in 1648, he was a worn out and prematurely aged man. That, however, was the year that he sat down and wrote this hymn. Now thank we all our God, with heart and hands and voices, who wondrous things has done, in whom his world rejoices, who from our mother's arms has blessed us on our way with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today. Proof, I think, that in every circumstance, true thanksgiving is still possible for those who believe and remember. For those who remember how God has blessed them on their way. For those who remember that God will always be there with them, come what may. And for those who remember that this same God who has sustained their life loves them still. And for those who remember, they will always have a reason for giving thanks. Be safe, and God bless you.